Soulless Dead, Chapter 10, Flashpoint. As I looked at the dead body with his head splattered around the ground, I snapped too. They were yelling at me to get into the truck. Hurry up. One of them grabbed me and helped me roll into the back of the pickup. The others were panicking and low. They were frightened, and for good reason. 3 motorcycles and 2 cars started to make their way around the corner, and we sped off. The screeching tires, the smoke, the engine roaring, Orville yelling back at us to get down. Then we heard the shots ring out. The 3 motorcycles led the pack. Each of them had a handgun or something like that. One of them started to reach into his pocket as he started to get close to us. The security guard, he shot him in the chest and killed him. He flipped off his bike, and the bike ran into a curb and flipped over and went through a glass window. And all I could do was stare off into space. The background, people were screaming, people were frightened. Bullets were whizzing by, but I'm just looking at my revolver, reloading it. Click 1, click 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. One of them shook me, and I came to immediately, and bullets were whizzing by, and one just barely missed my head as I ducked. Hit the corner of the car and whizzed off into oblivion with a hard clank. He told me that they were getting closer. As he sat back up to shoot at one of them pulled a pistol out and grazed him in the arm. He fell back into the bed of the truck as the women were screaming and laying down at the bottom of the bed trying to get low enough not to get shot. The doctor was trying to cover them as best he could as he peeked up to make sure that they weren't getting too close. I lifted my revolver and shot one of the bikers in the leg. He lost temporary control, but regained composure as he was closer. Jeff Krause then yelled and handed the M14 back through the truck's back window. I picked up the gun and shot the biker that I had already wounded in the chest. He lost control and rammed into the other motorcyclist, and they crashed onto the ground. The other motorcyclist rolled out of the way and hit the ground quite hard with a hard thud. You could see him rolling like Evel Knievel after a long jump that he just missed. The other truck swerved to avoid them. This Crown Victoria full of gang members hanging out the windows was shooting at us. I zeroed in on the driver. Everything got quiet again. No bullets, no screeching, no engines racing, no yelling from either side, no bullets. Not the yells of pain from the security guard that just took a slug to the arm. Not the doctor yelling at me to put pressure on it. Not the women. Not Orville. Not the car racing. Not the screeching of the shocks as they hit large bumps. At high speeds, it was nothing. I could see him gritting his teeth and staring right at me as he leaned out the window with his pistol trying to hold the wheel steady. I lifted it up and fired around. It was like it was in slow motion. It hit him at the bottom of the nose and at the top of the lip and killed him instantly. It burst his face open, and then all of a sudden, a large mist. The car lost control and hit a curb and went through the window of a shop. I'm sure he died almost immediately because it's called the T. The fatal T. Bullet went right through his face, crushed it, collapsed it, and cut the brainstem. He was dead before his head even hit the steering wheel. I'm sure the other boys in the car died screaming right along with him. But that wasn't it. Well, how could I be so calm? The other truck raced around, and the driver must have regained his composure because he fishtailed and drove straight towards us, and they were catching up. I gave the doctor my revolver, and the security guard, holding his arm and wincing, started firing back. 2 men in the back of the truck had M16s or some sort of carbine, and they were firing at us. They were horrible shots, thank God, and thanks to Orville's good driving, we got out of there okay. I told them all to fire at the cab of the truck, and I don't know whose bullet killed who, but it definitely lit up the cab. Blood splattered all over the windows as it killed the passenger, the driver, and even went through the back window and hit a couple of them in the legs. I noticed because they dropped almost immediately to the back of the truck. The truck spun out of control and hit another parked car that was in the middle of the street. The truck flipped and flung the two men in the back seat out, and they hit the ground quite hard and splattered. The screaming had stopped, everybody had calmed down, and the doctor and me, we attended to our friend that had a bullet in his arm. It went through all the way. We got him patched up, and we made our way back to Rose Hill. And as we came along one of the only two streets to get into the city, we looked like a war zone. Cars had bullet wounds, dead bodies were everywhere. Some of them were gang members, and a few of them were people I knew. We raced back. We raced our way back to the church. We got in there, and there was a few men standing in front and told us to get in there. We sent the doctor and the nurses and the security guard and his wife down the hallway. They went and tended to the sick, all those kind of people, and they were doing their job. They were making good use of their skill. And we made our way into the foyer. As we got closer to the chapel, Orville took me aside and said, he's like, "You're in trouble. That I'm not out of this." I got scared, but I followed them anyway. They were having a meeting, and they told us to sit down. They explained that there was a small skirmish just outside of town, just right next to the gas station where the two roads meet to get into the town. Some of the men had went out and tried to reason with the biker gang that was trying to come into the city to tell them to go the other way or to go around their town, and it ended up in a gunfight. 4 of our people died, and several got injured from concussions or something like that, and scrapes. I looked around the congregation and noticed that a few of them were bandaged up with deep red blotchy spots all over where they'd been either shot, stabbed, or hurt. It was definitely a shocking moment. I stood up and I told them we needed to take the fight to them. That these people, these gang members, were hurting people and they needed to die. We needed to go where they were from, we needed to find who they are, and we needed to stop this. There was going to be no more time for us to lose our friends and our family. It was irresponsible for us to allow this to happen. We have no right to sit idly by while these people get away with it, and if they can't beat us, they'll go other places to kill people. And so we'll be responsible for that. Orville and Jeff immediately stood up and told me to sit down, and I had no right to say anything. They explained what I had done, how I enjoyed it, and everything. A look of shock came across the entire audience. It was like I was a little dwarf inside of a stone fortress, and I was being bombarded, hiding deep inside myself. I was sitting straight up, eyes wide open, hands in my lap, and people were shooting daggers at me with their eyes and looking at me with shock, like I was some kind of psychopath. They explained that I had done some horrible things in great detail. They explained everything, and with every word, there were gasps, more shock. Who were they to judge me? I did what was right. I stopped them. They're not going to hurt anybody anymore. And here they are looking at me like I'm crazy. I didn't deserve it. I looked around and I saw more. I even saw some of the youth that were opening the doors to look in to see what was happening, to get more information. Everything was silent. The only thing I could see was their expressions. I couldn't understand what they were saying. I couldn't object. I couldn't move. I was too frightened. But the look on their faces. Logan, Dylan, Lane, just to name a few, just all of them looking at me. I couldn't say anything. My mouth quivered as if I was trying to push out any kind of word to tell them it was okay that it was lies, but I couldn't lie. Not here, not now. The disgust, the fear, the tears of people. Where was the nice kid that was funny and even taught some of the youth? Where did he go? What has he done? The gasps continued and the story continued. I came to and I noticed that Orville was still saying that we needed to take the fight to them, or we needed to fortify defenses. But then the unthinkable happened. Our church leader stood up and asked me if all these things were true, and I said yes. seemed to be the only word I could get out. It was like a demon just walked into a courtroom of angels. All the eyes were on me. I said that I had done it, that I had done the horrible things. And before I could utter an excuse or a rebuttal, they said that it would probably be best if I would leave. Me leave? Of all the people. I don't know what anybody else did, but isn't it justified? They're all looking at me like I'm some kind of psychopath. Look at me like some kind of murderer that's on death row, right before execution. They looked at me like I was an animal. I stood up, and as I began to walk out, I could see everything. I could see the kids, I could see the congregation, then I saw my parents. My mother was crying, and my father was upset. The look in their eyes was shame and disappointment. How could their sweet little boy that loved Pokemon and video games and watched cartoons clear up into his 20s? How could he turn into this? I think that was the most damaging dagger, the screw that went the deepest to bolt this darkness into my heart. The thing that damaged me the most was to see the disbelief on their face, to see my entire church family look at me in utter fear, like I was some kind of monster. Yeah, I snapped for a few seconds. It wasn't like it was all the time. The repercussions of my actions shouldn't come this soon. It was justified. They were gang members. They asked me to leave and go find some shelter away from people so that I wouldn't hurt people. As I walked out, I took a few breaths and stopped. I had to say something. And with a calm voice, I told them, whether or not you agree with me, whether you trust me, or you even give a crap what happens to me after I step out that door, they're going to bring a fight to you if you don't do something about it. They're going to murder every child, every woman, every person, every elderly, every sickly, everybody that has food, everybody that has a gun. They will kill you and they won't think twice about it. What I did was justifiable. I'm not crazy. I didn't do anything wrong. I was defending myself. We may agree on that, we may defend this, but I believe that we should find a place in this town and fortify it, so if anything comes near us, we will kill them before it gets to our doorstep, so that we don't have to worry about monsters coming to our doorstep. We can intercept them, we can stop them. And we can go to the source, and we can kill every man and kid holding a gun there. We'll take it to them, we'll fight them, we'll kill every gang member. They've given us nothing but trouble, they've given us nothing but sorrow, and we've lost so many people because of them. And even if they aren't afraid of us anymore, or maybe we beat them back, that doesn't mean they're not going to go pillage, rape, and kill other people. And we'll be responsible for it. Some men stood up in agreement, and a couple of others stood up. They began to argue amongst each other, saying that we had to protect the women and children, and that was right. Some people said that they shouldn't listen to a monster or a viper. And I turned around and I said, if you come with me, we'll make sure that these people never come back. We'll make sure that we'll put them in an early grave, and we'll make sure that this never happens again. This is weakness, and I won't stand for it, and I will never allow it to happen again. And I will die trying if I will. I've taken bullets, I've been shot, I've been beaten, and I've been blown up, and I will not leave this world until every one of them is dead. You would think that it was the zombies that scared people. You would think that it was all of those factors, but it wasn't. It was the fact that I killed some gang members and a sniper. I gathered up my things, but I couldn't get the look of my parents' eyes out of my head. It was like someone dumped a bucket of hydrochloric acid in the back of my head. I was so angry. A few of the men and some of the women packed up their things and got into trucks and made their way to the retirement home. just at our flank of the city, so we could keep an eye out to protect the people that cast me out. I was letting resentment set in, and I stopped myself. And as I made my way into the lobby, and people were grabbing things to put up against the windows and fortify, and grabbing maps and covering up the windows and bringing in boxes of food, I sat in that chair in the lobby. I looked at the gloves. I was staring at my hands. Look what they've done. I've slit people's throats. I've scalped people. I've shot people. As I closed my hand, I noticed that some of the blood was flaking off, that had dried. It was someone else's. It wasn't my own. Everything else was quiet, and I just couldn't stop but look at my hand. I couldn't help but think about the men, the look on their eyes as I killed them. Between the guns and the blades and the rolled-up scalp that was sitting in my duffel bag, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I was liking it, that it was sustaining me. You would think that the dead were the most horrifying part, but it was the people. Maybe this is what God meant by punishing us, that we deserved it. Maybe I was doing something bad, but like it or not, this is the world we're in, and I will deal with it. People walked by, but I didn't really notice. Some let me be. After hearing a nuclear bombing drop like that, I think people would leave you alone too for a little bit. And then I felt a hand, a gentle hand, come across my shoulder. I snapped to, and I noticed that it was a local kid that had somehow made it over there. His name was Logan Krause. I brought him up a couple times. He looked at me and he asked me if I was okay. Out of all the people that showed up to ask me if I was okay, it was him. A kid. Not an adult. Not my parents, but a kid. Before I could yell at him for coming to a very dangerous place and leaving the safety of the church, he asked me what happened. He got down on one knee and looked at me in the eyes and asked me what happened out there that made you do that. Logan was a pretty close friend, and I like to think I was a big brother in some way. We'd gotten pretty close, and we always told jokes and had fun, and I could see that he was genuinely worried. He was worried that the man that he invested his happiness and fun with, to hang out with in church, was slipping away, and he didn't want to lose a friend. I searched for words to speak to him, to tell him that everything was going to be okay, but I could only utter out one phrase. Awakening. I then stood up and told Logan to head back to the church now. But he told me no. He started to step back. He's like, "You need to tell me what happened." And I yelled back, "You need to go home. Where's your father? Where's your mother?" And he said, "You need to tell me what happened. If you're not going to tell me, who are you going to tell?" He stood his ground. I then called two of the other men that were picking up boxes, and I told them to escort him back to the church. They grabbed him by the arms, and they dragged him out of the building. He kept yelling, "What happened out there? Why are you like this? You need to say something. Talk to me." I stood straight up. I looked at him, and all I could do was wave goodbye. With the path I was going down, I'd probably never see him again. I'm different now, and that's the way it's going to be for a while.